BIR gives you the donee institution status. The PCNC recommends to the BIR, after evaluating the NGOs, recommends to the BIR which NGOs are valued to have the donee institution status, which gives you, as you said, tax deductibility perks.
So without the donee, what do you call it,
Donee institution status.
without the donee institution status, even if you're an NGO, if someone donates to you, that's not tax deductible.
No, sir.
And
You're
when you
even, sorry, sir.
Go ahead.
You're even levied the 30% donor's tax.
30% donors tax. Okay. And even if, but if you give that NGO the donee institution status, is that, in your opinion, because I don't know if it's officially, but in your opinion, or is it official, a seal of good housekeeping?
Yes. Basically, the mandates, if I may add, are two-pronged. First is you get the seal of good housekeeping. These are NGOs who apply for accreditation from PCNC but do not need the BIR certification for tax deductibility. They just want to prove that they were accredited by PCNC and have the seal of good housekeeping. The second mandate is for the...
Teka muna po, that's an important point. You mean, meron mga NGOs na they apply to you not to get the tax deductibility,
Yes, po.
but just to say na, oy, PCNC accredited ako. So therefore, may seal of good housekeeping.
Yes, po. Especially, if I may cite an example, for disaster relief, there are a lot of international donors, and international donors call PCNC and try to find out which are the legit, if we can call it that way, which are the accredited NGOs of the PCNC, and they will channel donations to those NGOs.
Ayun pala, very important yun.
But these donors abroad don't need a BIR certification from PCNC.
Yes.
Because in the States, they have their own 501c.
In other words, gusto lang nila malaman kung sino yung matino.
Kung sino po yung legit.
Pagkatiwalaan ng pera.
Opo. Because, just to clarify, Mr. Chair, you've been asking our government agencies on the process. Let me also share with you what the process of PCNC is.
Yes,
so
please.
that at least you can have a macro view
Go ahead.
of how the accreditation processes are. In PCNC, basically, it's a self-regulating body, and it's not funded. Not a single centavo comes from the government. It's the member organization or the accredited organizations that help each other in accrediting peer organizations. So in a team going into to an NGO to accredit, it is composed of at least 3 persons. One should have an accounting background to look at the financials. And the other areas that we look at are governance, linkages, operations. At yung po tanong nyo, sir, na physical visibility on the accreditation process, our team goes to the NGO. There's an hour in the 3 days that they're there that they talk to the board, they talk to the staff, they talk to the beneficiaries. There are project site visits, and there are checkings of the financial statements. So that's how intensive the accreditation process of PCNC is. And after which, a recommendation is done by the accrediting team and passed on to the board. The board meets once a month to look at all these accreditation requests, and after which they send it to the BIR for final approval. Accreditation is given 1, 3, and 5 years. So the checking is 1, 3, and 5 years. So our team goes back with the previous recommendations and check if these were done over the years.
And those that you accredit, regardless kung SEC sila, o cooperative sila, o DOLE sila registered, or pare-SEC lang ba?
Hindi po, pati po eskwela nag-accredit po kami. Basta non-profit. Yun lang po yung, ang definition. If
So,
it's non-profit,
What about cooperatives? Have you encountered?
no, sir, because they have their own law. They have their own code. There's a cooperative code.
Yes.
So they follow their own cooperative code. NGO has none.
But if a cooperative were to go to you and say, yeah, I want to have a seal of good housekeeping, would you entertain them?
Why not, sir? I think we will not be having any problem. But I think the issue there is if they would accredit with so many accrediting bodies, because for sure they would have to be accredited by CDA.
Yes. After CDA, they say, okay, now I complied with CDA paper requirements. Now I want to prove to the world that I am
Yes, sir.
a cooperative that practices a seal of good housekeeping.
Yes,
so
sir.
I go to you. You
Yes, sir.
entertain them.
Yes, sir. In fact, if you would go back a step, CDA also issues a seal of good housekeeping. So now I think that would be the issue, even in the accrediting process. The issue is government agencies accredit NGOs. We accredit NGOs, but what is the real standard? Because the manner of accrediting are different, the levels are different,
The standards are different.
the standards are different. So once you say, for example, an organization accredited by another accrediting body, does it have the same value as what we accredit? That's maybe a thing that we could look at.
Yes, that's a good point. Chair Herbosa, I see
Yes,
that you
in
want
fact,
to talk. Go ahead.
it's good that the chair of the PCNC is here because that's precisely what we're going to do. We're going to put PCNC registered non-stock non-profit corporation the low risk, and we don't have to maybe prioritize them in the random examination. So that would save us some of our resources.
Maraming salamat po.
Kayo po, Mr. Platero, Director Platero, nag-i-issue pala kayo ng, as mentioned, nag-i-issue kayo ng Seal of Good Housekeeping?
Yes, Your Honor. The certificate of good standing that we issued annually to all registered cooperatives that complied with the submission of the administrative requirements under the code.
Okay. Mr. Carpio, in the light of this hearing and the pronouncements and are you prepared for the deluge that might come for accreditation?
Yes, sir, no problem. Because apparently we're here basically. The mandate is to help government. If the problem is basically operational, I think we can tackle it operationally. If applications come in more than what we expected, I think we have to restudy also our organization.
Fantastic.
Because please understand, sir, that most if not all of the accredited organizations are business. So they have this business acumen of trying to organize things and if need be, reorganize your organization, your structure, so to fit in to the needs of what has to be done. So that's how we look at it. We're not closing the door if, for example, the number of applications increased by 100%. We have to increase our capability by 100%.
So you're again to repeat, you're a private organization.
Yes,
You're
sir.
a private NGO, and yet your co-chair is from government.
Yes, sir. It is under the executive order that the co-chair of PCNC is the BIR commissioner, or he's appointed to represent.
Why are you subject to the executive order?
Sir, that was the basis for our creation, sir.
Ah, I see.
We were created by an executive order in which we signed a MOA with the Department of Finance in 1997, giving us the mandate to accredit.
So you're private, but your creation was government initiated. That doesn't. You did not register with the SEC as a.
We have registered with the SEC, sir.
Senator Bam.
Good morning.
Hi.
Morning, Sani.
Hi, good morning, sir.
Well, as Sani knows, and the members of PCNC, they know that I'm a big fan of that setup. Actually, it's a model on how the private sector can work with government. In fact, if more bodies like this could be set up, for example, the groups, one of the ideas was the microfinance groups could also have a similar setup where they police themselves. or even social enterprises can police themselves. PCNC has always been seen as a model, no, by which the sector itself is actually making sure that it does the right thing, no? And PCNC has been a model for decades in the Philippines, no? My only comment is that in our experience also previously in the NGO sector, it's really difficult to get a PCNC accreditation, no? And maybe that's on purpose, no? But the fear there is that if government only transacts with PCNC accredited groups, initially it will only transact with the big foundations and the big NGOs and those who have had a long track record. It might not be able to transact with relatively new or start-up service organizations or civil service organizations now. So my suggestion, and this is of course unsolicited advice, if one of the governance measures is to move towards having government work with PCNC accredited, maybe PCNC can also look at the different the life cycle of an NGO or the life cycle of a civil service organization. In the same way, in enterprises, you have micro, small, medium, and large. No, you don't expect the micro to have audited statements by SGV, obviously, diba? But you expect that from a medium or from a large, probably from a good auditing firm, but not from a micro. From a micro, mas developmental yung approach. What skills do they need so they can actually grow to a bigger organization? They can expand their reach. They can help more people. So maybe for PCNC, you can look at that also, that the current process, and this is of course just a comment from people in the NGO sector, that it's quite strict, definitely because may kasamang tax ano yun di ba? Tax implication. Maybe that can be for your gold standard. But if you had processes also for smaller organizations that maybe didn't require the numerous paperwork and a lot of the track record that's needed now for the PCNC accreditation. Maybe in that sense, government could still work with these smaller organizations. Again, no, we're talking about 95 to 99% of all of the real NGOs in the Philippines, diba? Still be able to go through a process similar to what you're doing, but maybe simplified. And then, as the benefits get higher, as they reach working with government, and of course, meaning getting funds or even getting a tax tax incentive deal for their donations, then they move up the chain, rather than just one process, which either gets you or doesn't get you the tax incentive. In that way, PCNC, aside from being an accrediting body, can serve a developmental purpose also for all of the NGOs. No? Kasi nakita rin ho natin na sometimes NGOs, it begins with just one person with a good idea. I mean, groups like a number of NGOs these days start that way na maliit na grupo, nagkaroon ng isang idea, admittedly, hindi pa ganun kaganda yung mga sistema, wala pang track record, pero maayos naman. They can already be maybe a different type of seal for good housekeeping for that time. And as they grow, gumaganda yung kanilang serbisyo, eventually at some point, they get the tax donation, the 30%, the tax deductible status. At some point, maybe then they can transact with government. But it becomes part of a process rather than just pass or fail, no? Which I think is the current process now.
Sir, can I comment on that? Number one is the reason why we have 1, 3, and 5 accreditation terms is for new and complete documentation, we give the 1 automatically. And we study them for 1 year. If we see their processes are improving and there are control mechanisms, then they go to 3. So it's graduated also on the performance of the NGO. Second is the documentary requirements that you were saying that we're very strict. In one of the meetings we had with Commissioner Kim Henares, she was even saying, even if you go straight to us, it's the same kinds of documents that we will be asking from you. So
that's
from
my point. If maybe you could have something where we can separate the seal of good housekeeping and the tax.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, meaning because we went through that, no? And I know
Yes,
other
sir.
groups who have gone through that. Even yung 1 year status nyo is really quite difficult. No? So I think in that sense, it cuts the sector into those who are maybe more equipped, those who have maybe are foundations or who have the capacity to have an accounting office, while we know that the rest of the NGO sector are more simple organizations. No? So maybe they can pass through the process. At the end, after they graduate, they get that status from BIR. Admittedly, kailangan nga naman mabigat yung requirements doon. But even a simpler process wherein you can check on how they're doing, you can guide them along, make it a graduated process para hindi lang siya pass or fail na you get 1 year or you don't. Diba? They can be part of that process. I think that will help a lot of the NGOs also in terms of moving up the chain.
Well taken, sir. Sir, if I may add, even in the process of us evaluating, there are certain control mechanisms that we place in certain things just to improve on governance, especially on governance. Like right now, we've required corporate foundations and family foundations, and I think the religious sector, to have at least one independent director, something like that. So, an independent director defined as one for corporate, one for family, and one for religious. So, like for example, for corporate, one independent director would mean somebody that's not connected into the number of companies that you have. Not even a director, not even an independent director of any company that you have. For family, second degree of consanguinity, you have to have an independent director. So these are the things that we also input to improve on governance also of NGOs. Not only small, but also the big ones.
Okay, but I'd like to. There's a very good point that if you could have steps or categories, because some would just want a seal of good housekeeping for starters. Tsaka na yung